Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. My hair is a disaster. Anyway, I was wearing a hat. We have Kathleen from Evolution Physical Therapy and Fitness online to talk to you about all sorts of wonderful things that'll help, hopefully bulletproof you from getting any kind of injuries. And we're thrilled to have her online. I'm going to throw it up to her. And away we go, Kathleen. Thank you. And I'm going to pin you on. Here you go.
Great.
Here you
Hi, Kath.
are.
Perfect. Happy to be back. If you were on the call, what was that maybe a month or ago, month or two?
Something like that.
We
Hmm.
went through a kind of a skills checklist, some testing you can self-test with, and kind of see where you're at in terms of strength, mobility, and kind of use that as a predictor to hopefully reduce injury as you get further into the training block. Today we'll talk a little bit more about both recovery and strengthening, or mobility rather, and strengthening. So I definitely want to I'll show you my, favorite, my favorite, couple of my favorite biggest bang for your buck stretches. And then I want to open the floor for questions. I will also go through like a couple of intro exercises that are good from like a strength and activation standpoint. And then we can talk a little bit too about why strength training is important to pair with our marathon training. All right. Um, so I guess we can start, and if you want to go along with me while we do these, even better. We'll start with a little bit of mobility. So you'll see a putting green behind me. Uh, so I'm going to show you this from two angles. This is like one of my favorite stretches. It's called a hip 90-90 stretch. So I'll show you from the side as well. So it's clearer, but we're going to sit here, right angle on this front leg. So 90-degree angle at from the thigh to the lower leg. And then the same thing on your back leg. So right angle on the back leg. We want this front shin to be parallel to your back thigh here, okay? Then, and I guess I'll show you from the side what this looks like as well. Look at that first. So I am here, parallel, parallel. Now, if you've ever taken a yoga class, they sometimes have you do like a pigeon and it looks kind of like a pigeon like this. Um, I actually want you to try something a little bit different. So we want to make sure that your sternum is over your thigh here. Imagine a piece of string is attached to your chest here, and it's going to pull you over that front leg. So we're kind of keeping your chest tall, but we're hinging forward. And what you should feel is a very good stretch in the back of this front, like the glute of this front leg. And I'll hold this for, up to a minute. And I'll do a couple rounds on each side. Now, when we think about stretching, um, now I think more and more people talk about this, but if you're not aware, I actually don't really recommend just static stretching like this before you run, because here we're putting your muscle in this really like lengthened stretched position. And then we go to get into running and we're asking those same muscles to go through a repetitive stretch and shorten cycle. So what's actually better is to do something a little bit more dynamic. We think more about like just like starting to introduce our body to movement before we run, maybe a little bit of activation, but not any of this longer hold stretching. So this would be after your run or, later that day, whatever works for you. And we'll switch, and if you're doing this with me, we're gonna do the other side just so we're not uneven. So yeah, when you go to switch it, can be a little bit of a brain twister. So right angle on the front leg, right angle on the back leg. Those two are going to be parallel here. And our chest stays up nice and tall. All right. Next, I actually want to show you a little bit of an exercise I really think is like, it's one of my biggest bang for your buck stretches for anyone, or mobility exercises for anyone. And I think it's good for running too, because we don't really think about like our trunk or our upper body, our upper back being involved in running. But what we see often, as we get longer into the run, we can get kind of like hunched and pulled forward. So then our pecs get really tight and our upper back isn't as open. So I'm going to show you a couple things that I really like to do for the upper back. If you have a foam roller, and if you work a desk job, this is also great. So if you have a foam roller, we're actually going to foam roll your thoracic spine, your upper back. So first you can put your hands on your head here. We're going to roll up and down, starting at kind of shoulder blade level and working down to the base of your rib cage. You might get some cracks and pops. And then we're going to sit your butt down, hips down, and we're going to then just thinking about breathing as we open up over the foam roller. So my hips are on the ground. I'm exhaling as I'm just opening up, trying to create a little more kind of chest expansion through your chest there. And then you can kind of slide your butt down so that the roller goes up. Take another breath there. We're kind of moving your hips down so the roller moves its way up your back. Okay. The other thing that I really like for upper back and spinal mobility is called an open book. So we're gonna put you actually, if you don't have a foam roller, which if you're training for a marathon, you should. But if you don't, necessarily need the roller for this. Top knee goes on the roller. I'm just using my bottom arm to kind of create a pillow for my head. You can use an actual pillow. And then we're going to exhale as we rotate to open up. If you have the foam roller here under your knee, you're going to stop before your knee lifts off the foam roller like that. So we're going to think about keeping knee on the roller. Exhale as we open. And then come back down. Good. And then you'd obviously switch and do the other side. Before I keep going, does anyone have any questions? Anything specifically they have questions about mobility? I can keep going, but if anyone has any specific questions about how to stretch a certain area, I would love to cater it to your specific needs as well.
Hi, this is Rose. Can you just go over what a dynamic stretch is for the pre-run?
Yes, great question. So if you've gone to one of the bigger meetups, I guess I've gone to a couple, and I will be there at Dodger Stadium, and I think I'm doing the warm up. But I do a couple of things before I start. So I do some alternating lunges forward. And then I'll do a lateral lunge to the side, alternating. And I do about, 10 on each side. Then I'll do a couple squats, Bring my arms up overhead. Now, if you have any sort of shoulder issue, then just keep your arms at your side. 10 of those. If your balance is decent, I'll bring my knee to my chest here. 10 of those. And then in a perfect world, you'd have access to a band. Say that you're doing this run or walk from your house, and you could do a little bit of banded activation as well. So for me, that looks like sitting into this, and this is if you're not doing this, if you're not doing any like strength or activation, plug this in beyond that daily run too. But a lateral toe tap. So I'm sitting, I'll show you from two sides. Oh, you can actually see me in the mirror. That's great. You're gonna tap out to the side and back in. Out to the side and back in. So kind of like out to the side and a little bit behind you, just a touch. What we're doing here is we're activating your glute med, which is this outside glute muscle, to work when we're more biased on one leg, which we need to be when we're running. We're always on one leg. When we're running or walking, we need to be able to use those glute muscles to keep our pelvis from shifting too much in this direction. So I will do these beforehand, and then I will also do these. So just taking that leg, tapping behind me, I'll shoot from the side, just straight back. Okay? That's kind of the basic. Sometimes I'll toss a single leg bridge in there too. But if you do that, some lunges, some squats, just try to kind of wake your body up and prepare it for movement. That will help a lot. Any other
Great.
questions? Yeah, great
Now,
question.
if this is something that I did at home before going to the meetup and then drive, is that not a really good idea?
It's better than nothing. How far are you driving?
It takes maybe 15, 20 minutes.
It's still better than nothing. If you do that, you do the banded stuff beforehand, and then you get to the meetup and you do some of the dynamic stuff. That's okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
better than not at all.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we get going? I'm going to show you an ankle mobility exercise that I like. And then we'll talk a little bit about strength training too. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about ankle mobility. We need, and I'm going to show you, this is, if you're on the testing one, you'll recognize this, but we need when we're walking, when we're running, we need knee to be able to, technically need enough ankle mobility down here for our knee to kind of get in line with our big toe. For walking, we actually need a little bit more range. So if you're like, the best test for this to kind of see, okay, is my ankle really stiff? And that can come from the joint. They can also come from the calf muscle. You can kind of find a wall, and then starting with your toe at the wall, you're going to lunge to tap your knee at the wall. And then if you can do that without your heel lifting off, then you're going to retest a little bit further from the wall. So you're going to slide your foot back. Same thing, knee to wall. Slide your foot back. For me, that's probably it. Now I can get my knee that's decently over my my big toe or my toes. But let's compare it side to side. If you go to do this and like against the wall, you feel like your heel is starting to lift up, then we got to work on this a little bit. So I'm going to slide my foot back, knee to wall. Okay, interesting. So this side.
So you're saying about 2 inches away from the wall, your toes?
where you start?
Well, where you end up.
Oh, it depends. So, you want to see that you look side to side, and you've
Mhm.
got like, 2 inches would probably be the minimum or the goal.
Yeah.
Technically, as long as you can get your knee over your toe versus here, that's enough. I think the big thing
Oh,
too is look side to side. Like, is one side much different than the other? So for me, my right side is a lot tighter than my left. So that tells me I need to work on my right ankle. So a couple things that I like to do for this. The first one is actually just kind of repeating that test. Now, I'm sure you have all seen a standing calf stretch at the wall with both your back knee uh, bent like this and back knee straight. But you can also just start to work on like your mobility a little more dynamically. So sometimes I'll just have my patients or I will just kind of repeat that knee tap towards the wall just to start to kind of get a little more motion through that ankle. The other thing I'll sometimes do um, is in this kneeling position. Now, this position, the standing version might be better if this is really tight for your hips. So both are good. If this position, being in this like kneeling position, is okay for you, what we can do is we can try to work to open up the ankle joint kind of all the way around the front of the joint. So what that means is first we're going to kind of try to lunge and get this knee, kind of lunge this knee over the inside of the big toe, and then we'll come back off. And then lunge the knee over the middle of the foot and come back off. And then lunge the knee over the outside of the foot. So we're kind of making this like boop, boop, boop pattern, all the while making sure your heel stays down. So for me in this position, like my knee doesn't actually get over my toe, which tells me I need to be working more on my right ankle. I think I saw a comment or a question pop up in the box. Let's see. So, question. Towards the end of the long run last week, my knee started to hurt right beneath the kneecap. I did some research and it looks to be runner's knee pain. Any recommendations? So, front of the knee pain with running a few different things can contribute or cause it. If so, we can get pain in the front of the knee if our quad and our hip flexor are just really tight, because the quadricep then kind of feeds into the patellar tendon runs over our kneecap. So sometimes if we get, if it's just a one-off episode of knee pain in the front of your knee, it might just be like, you had some more quad tightness towards the end of the run, and that was just kind of tugging there. So I'm going to show you like what I do, say if it was tightness, and then I'm going to circle back and kind of talk about some other things that can contribute to that. So obviously like foam rolling your quad is good. I'll show you what I like to do for quad foam rolling. So this part's pretty straightforward. Roll up and down, find the spots that feel a little less comfortable. And then if you find a spot that feels really tight, you can do little pulses on the roller. You can also roll like side to side on the roller. And then the other stretch that I really like, now, right here, pillow, is obviously we've got your standard kneeling quad and hip flexor stretch here. So I think a lot of times people think they need to be like this to get a good stretch, but you can actually get a better stretch if you focus more on what's happening in your pelvis. So if we tuck your pelvis underneath, then I only need to push to about here before I feel a good stretch in my quad. If this feels like a really intense stretch, then stop there. If you feel like you need a little bit more out of the stretch, you can pop a foam roller under your foot, and then same thing, you'll feel this a little bit further down into the front of your leg, into your quad. Now, other things that can contribute to pain in the front of the knee, if we don't have the like strength in our hips, in our glutes, then, and there's excess movement down at the knee. So for example, if I go to stand on one leg here and my hip drops like this, show you again. I'm here and my hip drops like this. That's going to impact what happens down the chain at my knee. We're going to get a little more rotation in here. We can see later into a long run when people are tired, or if people are not doing strength work, what's happening at their pelvis, there's a lot of side to side shifting because their glutes aren't strong enough. So every time they're on leg, we're getting a lot of side to side shifting, and that ends up being a little more force on the front of the knee. The last thing that I think is almost always part of the picture with front of the knee pain with running is your stride length and cadence. Now, I say always, almost always. I've had plenty of people where that's not the case, but what I see, I would say most often is runners with pain in the front of the knee are overstriding a little bit too much. So that means that foot is landing a little too far out in front of them. And what that does is that serves as like a brake to our forward momentum. And we see a lot more force up the chain into the knee and all the way up to the hip. So you may need to do a little work, with Coach David to have him look at your form. And then if you're running with a watch that measures your cadence, it would be good to take a look at your run cadence, because not everyone and your run cadence is your steps per minute. If you Google search this, it's going to tell you you need to have a cadence of 180. I will tell you it's very person to person. So, and Coach David can talk about that too. I am 5'5". Someone who is 6'3", we are not going to have the same run cadence. My legs are half their size, right? So that 180 number is not a live or die by number. But if you're seeing your cadence is like in the 150s, then that's probably a sign. And, we look at your gait and your stride length is too long, that foot's out in front of you, then we need to get that cadence up so the foot hits the ground underneath you.
Somebody asked about you mentioned dropping your hip and glute strength. What would be a good glute exercise to strengthen that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one is the lateral toe taps that I showed you before. I like that one for standing. But then I've got two other ones for you. So I really like, maybe three. I really like a single leg bridge, either with a hold or a single leg bridge with your knee to your chest. So trim the side. I'm really just hugging this other knee to my chest to prevent myself from cheating. All the work is through the leg that's doing the glute. Now, if you go to do this and this is impossible, it's a sign that we need to work on your glute strength, but you should start with a double leg bridge. Other ones I like. A clamshell is a really good place to start if if you've ever done a clamshell. But at the same time, I think they're over prescribed. They're a good place to start if you've never done any glute strengthening. And a clamshell looks like we're all the way on your side. Knees are about 40-ish, 30 to 40 degrees from your body. And then we're lifting this leg up and behind you. And with this, we want to make sure we're not rotating your body. Your hips stay rolled forward. And we're just lifting this leg up and back. Now, a level up from that is coming into a side plank here. Bottom knee is down. Top leg lifts up and holds. Okay? Those are good initial places to start. At some point in a bit, we can talk a little bit more about like strength training with weights as well. Question. What can we do if we're getting tight hip flexors? How to warm them up and cool them down? So the kneeling stretch I showed you, that is a quad and a hip flexor stretch. The one where I pulled the pillow down. I actually find that often the hip flexor tightness that is very recurrent. People feel like my hip flexors are always tight and I always need to stretch them and it doesn't get better. It's usually a sign that the hip flexors are actually a little weak. And for running and walking, we really need to use that muscle to be able to drive our leg forward, and they just tend to be undertrained. If you look, best exercises for runners, banded exercises for runners, they're going to show you like a couple of things I just showed you, but they're not usually going to include a hip flexor exercise. So to stretch, you can do that half kneeling stretch that I showed you. For strengthening, I would start pretty simple with the band. I'm going to show you an option on the ground and then standing. So really have room in this room in my house. So we're gonna pull band around your feet. You're gonna pull your hip up or knee up towards your hip. That's kind of your first level. And I would progress your band on that. Make sure it's you can do it with a decently heavy band. And then I would also work on that in standing. So standing, pulling your knee up towards your hip, band around your feet. All right. Any other questions?
Oh, Kayla and M&A, who asked questions earlier, both said thank you.
Great. You're welcome.
Oh, wait, we just have one from Sean just popped up. I have been having inner ankle pain for the past 3 weeks. I have taken 3 to 4 day breaks and then running 2 times a week, and decided to cut it now if I feel any pain. Oh, good. Okay. It's meaning, I guess, stop when he feels pain. Comes in around 3 miles. Oh, pain, that is, I guess, comes in around like 3 miles of running. It's right underneath behind the ball on the medial side of my ankle.
Okay. Is it like you're talking, are you talking like behind here? There's a lot
Sean?
of there's a lot of structures there, so I need more.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, and a little lower.
Okay. So it's hard to, I don't want to make any I don't want to make any like diagnoses without doing an assessment. I'll talk about like a couple of the things it could be. Now, if there is point tenderness on the bone, then come see me. Um, it could be one structure that is there is your posterior tibialis tendon, so it could be that. Now again, I'm operating with not, no like physical information. But it could be your posterior tibial tendon. That tendon, it kind of starts in the calf, comes down, and it attaches like down kind of here, and it plays a role in like providing stability at your foot, especially when we're like our foot hits the ground. So it actually is, it's used quite a bit with running. And it is fairly common to see this pop up for runners. So let me show you. It's going to take a little setup, but I'm going to show you one thing for that. Again, if you have any like tenderness on the bone, come and see me. Don't
By
just
the
do
way,
this.
while Kathleen is setting up, I should tell all of you, she will be at Dodger Stadium 2 Saturdays from now. That's really a week and a day and a half from now. Not
Yeah.
this Saturday and a day and a half, but a week beyond that. A week and 2 days from now, basically. So you
Yes.
can see her at Dodger Stadium, where we will all be. Although we will have our workout in Balboa Park, even though we're telling everybody in Balboa Park, come on Saturday instead of Sunday, we'll still be in Balboa Park on Sunday.
All right. So you would set up a band kind of high on a table. No, this is like, it's not tight enough. I don't have any more space here. I like foam roller squeeze through here because it just prevents us from like cheating with any of the muscles up, further up at your hip and knee. And then you're sweeping in against the band, trying to keep your forefoot relatively flat on the ground. So just worry about sweeping in for posterior tibialis. Also, like single heel raises. If you're not doing single heel raises, do those too. If you can't do a single, then you really need to do them. Single heel raises. Make sure you're holding on to something. Lift one leg up. Knee is straight. We're going all the way up, all the way down. Do this against a wall so you have balance. Depending on your age and gender, there's actually like normative values for runners. With the heel raises, should I do them on a step or a book? You can. That's it's more of an eccentric exercise for your like Achilles tendon, and as long as you can do them off a step, that's totally fine. If you like can't do a single leg heel raise, don't go and try to do them on the step. Start on the floor because that's kind of a next level. But if they're doable, yeah, you can definitely do that. If you're not doing calf raises, that's across the board. I would definitely plug those in. Because we really need to be able to, our calf complex gets really worked when we're training for a marathon. And I've seen if calf weakness then can kind of trickle into a lot of injuries, or kind of can be a pretty big contributing factor to a lot of injuries. Plantar fasciitis, sometimes posterior tibialis stuff. Shin splints are really just like calf complex weakness is what, leads to that, or is a big contributor. So if you're not doing calf raises, definitely start doing them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that the area, there's not much pain there unless I like really do like a side squat on like a slanted board. Guess that would be, is that kind of, or like if I were to overpronate it, like force a pronation,
Okay.
that's where
Yeah,
the pain would be.
that sounds like posterior tib.
Okay.
And that is like something, you wanna make sure with, tendon related things, you want to make sure we're not like training on a really, really angry, inflamed tendon for, a really long period of time, because they're just stuff there can be really hard to like and long to recover from. That being said, like you can, if you have a little bit of posterior tibial tendinopathy, you can still train through this. Like if it's uncomfortable, but it's tolerable, you don't necessarily have to stop as soon as you feel pain. Now, it's all about the degree of irritability. So my rules of thumb with pain and running are, it should be tolerable. So if it's like, I have an awareness that it's there, there's a little bit of discomfort, but you know, it's manageable, then that's okay. That's a green light. Um, it should be pain. It should not be pain that causes you to change your running gait. So if you're like limping or doing something to avoid it so it goes away, that's a sign you should stop. If it's pain that's like relatively stable, and by that I mean it comes on at some point during the run, but it just kind of stays there. You're aware of it. Um, it doesn't build and build and build and build over the course of the run, then that's okay too. And then you just want to monitor your like 24-hour soreness rules afterwards. So if it's painful a little bit after the run, but we're not feeling pain like 2 days later, then that's also okay. You just don't want to be like experiencing pain at that site for greater than 24 hours after your run. And obviously that's different for everyone. But yeah, just like, everyone has their own level of comfort, but yeah, just with something like that's a soft tissue related, like I'm not telling you to run through excruciating pain, but you might be able to train a little bit through it as you're like rehabbing it.
Okay, got it. Like, so I have friends who've talked about the Achilles and then now they have balls on the back of the Achilles and they can't run at all. Is
Yeah.
that a risk? I guess that's the biggest
Uh,
fear. Something
well, so
like
Achilles
that.
would be like really like back here.
Okay.
Um, yeah, like it sounds like that's a different spot. Like
Yeah,
Achilles,
it's not back there.
like, yeah, much more posteriorly. Now, like again, if you run on a really cranky posterior tib for a year, like at some point it's
Mhm.
going to catch up to you. But if it's like, okay, I'm starting to do exercises, it's feeling like you don't have to shut it down for, months and months. But yeah, if you run on like a really cranky Achilles tendon and don't do anything about it and don't do PT, then it will catch up to you.
Okay, I got it. So I can run on it because I have run on it. It's just not I mean,
I didn't hear the last part. I think you got cut off.
I apologize. I
lose my
just
ability to run, basically. I don't want to lose that.
Uh, sorry,
That's
you
my
said
biggest.
you can run on
My
it. I missed the middle part.
Sorry, yeah, I can run on it. My biggest fear is not being able to chase my kid around.
Yeah,
Because
well,
I want to train for marathon and be softer.
yeah, I think it's all about like your degree of irritability. Like if it's really severe, then I'm not telling you to run on it. But if it's there's plenty of people that like have posterior tib irritation and it, as long as they do the right things, it will go away. But if you just keep running on it and don't do anything about it, it won't go away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if I do the strength work with the heel raises and the stretching, the calf stretches, the pain could eventually go away, or it'll hopefully stay where it is,
Yeah, I
not
mean,
get
and I
worse.
think like start and the windshield wipers too, like the banded stuff, start with that stuff. But if you're noticing it's not getting better, then I'll be there next weekend. And at Dodger Stadium and we can kind of talk further. You might just also like need PT.
Okay, got it. Sounds good. Hill, does it affect hill running? Like I think the pain shows up when I run on hills, when I run downhill, basically.
Yeah, that would make
Like
sense. Like your posterior
okay,
tib has to control your arch adapting to the ground. And if we're running downhill, that's just happening like it's more force and it's happening more quickly.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Also, if I might add, on a downhill, try and shorten and quicken your stride so you'll touch the ground more often, and that way you'll put more pressure on each footstep rather than one pounding downhill stride. That'll take a little stress off of you as well. Just kind of double time it, you know, without
Yeah, it's
pushing
worked
back as
great when
much.
I did that. My cadence goes up to like 200 now because I'm doing that.
Oh,
So it's worked great, except for this little
great.
problem.
Did that change in form help you on the
Well, before I used to have like this lower back pain from running downhill. That's gone.
oh,
I don't have any of it. And then I did the
good.
core exercises, because you guys recommended it, and that worked.
Great. Okay. Rose says in our chat, do the stretches shown help with IT band tightness? I'm assuming that she's having IT band issues. Well,
Um, I think the kneeling quad stretch will, I mean, often IT band tightness, there's some quad tightness too. So the half kneeling stretch, I think you should try. Um, the IT band, if you're feeling the pain down at your knee, like the outside of your knee, I think a lot of people think, or maybe don't know that your IT band is just it's a band of like very thick tissue. It's called fascia. And it actually originates from this muscle that's kind of like your up like outer hip here, like anterior and outer hip here. It's called your TFL. That muscle helps flex your hip and it also serves as a stabilizer. And so sometimes the TFL kicks in as a stabilizer when some of the smaller glute muscles are not as strong. Um, so if you're not doing any glute strengthening, if you're not doing any strengthening, like that would be an area to address. And then what happens is the TFL kicks in to kind of help support, and then it gets really tight, and then that band of tissue that attaches to it pulls up, and then it causes some pain down at your like outside of your knee. Um, there's actually like no benefit to um foam rolling or like theragunning this, like the actual IT band. It's a really like it's a very thick band of tissue, and they actually did this study where they took a cadaver IT band and they put like a crazy amount of weight on it, and then they took it off and the tissue it went back to its resting position. It didn't deform at all. So we can't really stretch the IT band, but we can target the TFL, the muscle it originates from, and that should help. So if you've been rolling, I feel like I have people that come in like, I've been rolling it and it doesn't get better. So if you've just been rolling like next to your knee, stop, because I've actually just seen it make it worse. But a couple things you can do. So that kneeling quad stretch is good. Foam rolling your quad is good. And then foam rolling your upper hip is also good. So if we have that like bony upper crust on the top of our pelvis, we're gonna sit into the meaty tissue just below that. And you can kind of like roll back and forth side to side until you feel you'll find a spot there that feels tight. And then you can roll up and down just little like pulses there. I will also sometimes actively release this just by like rotating my body on a spot. So I would do that. But then I would also make sure you're doing glute activation, strength training. I think I haven't even gotten to that, but I think big thing that I think I see is we get into a marathon block, or we're a runner. We're a runner because we like running, and we don't like lifting weights at all. And one of the best things that you can do to decrease your injury risk and actually improve your performance is to lift weights. So the banded stuff I've shown you it serves a good purpose. It's good pre-run. It's a good place to start if you've never done any strength training. But it's not enough on its own. So what we've actually seen to really reduce injury risk is runners lifting with heavy weights, helps build strength, improve power and performance, and decrease risk of injury. Now, again, like it's all about building up from where you are now. So if you've never lifted weights at all, it probably makes sense to start with some body weight stuff and then build to some light weights. But if you're not doing, I do, a couple days a week is ideal. That being said, once we get into our peak weeks, it's hard to fit it all in. So, once I'm like in the peak week of a marathon, I'm probably only lifting realistically like 1 day a week. And maybe I'm doing another day where it's a smaller lift, but a lot of it's like mobility and activation and, just enough to kind of address any of the, aches and pains that pop up during a training block. But in this kind of earlier phase, I guess you guys are in the middle, but 2 days a week is the most ideal. And what that looks like is in a perfect world, we're doing some squatting, some deadlifting, some weighted calf stuff. So I showed you body weight calf stuff, but we actually really need to do calf strengthening with weights. Some sort of like weighted carry. So I really like weights to start, weights in each hand, and just a weighted march. And what that does is it challenges our core and our trunk, but it also challenges our stability when we're on one leg, which is very important for both running and walking. And then a little bit of upper body. We need, in a perfect world, we've got nice arm swing back and forth. So some rows, some pulling is good as well. And it can all be done in realistically like a 25-minute lift.
Does anybody have any more questions? And don't forget, I will stay online, but don't forget you can see Kathleen at Dodger Stadium in about a week, a little over a week.
Yes.
So, how about Amanda writes, how about pull-ups for strength training? Pull-ups
Yes.
on like
Pull-ups are great. Pull-ups are great for runners. Because when we're running, like we don't think about our arm swing, but we need to be able to kind of like pull arms back, and also like pull-ups are great for helping with our trunk posture when I'm running, so we don't get kind of pulled forward. So yeah, pull-ups, rows, I don't do like you don't need to do a ton of pushing or pressing if you're not someone who lifts. But push-ups are also good too.
Paul says, thank you. That was very helpful. So there you
Welcome.
go. Yeah, good. Anybody else? Anyone else? Questions? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? Good. Okay. Well, shall we shut it down and turn off the recording? Are anything else? Last words? Kathleen, anything else you want to?
Nope, that's about it. I'm gonna drop my email in the chat. It's
Oh,
Kathleen, K-H, I guess for the recording people, it's Kathleen, Kathleen at evolution-pt.com. If you have questions, or if you have something that's popped up during training, always better to address it early before the mileage goes up. And I'm happy to help. I work in our South Bay office in Hawthorne. But if you're not close to me, I can connect you with one of our PTs that works with runners in a different clinic.
got it. I'm trying to type out and I'm failing here. I'm trying to type out, aha, well, this is not working. Anyway, enough of my whiteboard stuff. Now I can't get rid of it. There we go. Good. There you are. Anyway, any other questions? That's Kathleen at evolution-pt.com. And send her an email if you have a question or if you want to get an appointment for they have locations like almost everywhere except I think the Valley. And
Wow, like that.
uh, but that'd be great. Anyway, thank you all. I'm going to stay online. I'm going to turn off the recording. For those of you watching the recording at home, thank you and good night.